My stepdaughter accused me of harassment to steal $7,000 from me. But when Diana called the police, I played the recordings where she admitted her lie and left everyone speechless. I'm 46 years old. I work as a construction project manager, and I need to tell this story because what happened to me 2 years ago basically destroyed my second marriage and almost completely ruined my reputation. I guess I should start at the beginning. When I met Diana in 2019 at one of those art galleries that organize events for professionals, with cheap wine and people pretending to understand abstract paintings. She was an art teacher, 43 years old, had a nice smile, and that calm energy that makes you feel comfortable. I had been divorced from my first wife, Jennifer, for almost 5 years at that point, and honestly, I was ready to try again. Jennifer and I were still friends, which I know sounds weird, but it worked for us. We had married very young and simply grew in different directions. No drama or anything like that. Deanna told me from the beginning that she had a daughter, Sophia, who was like 15 when we met, almost 16. The biological father, David, had disappeared. When the girl was barely 2 years old, he went to Texas and basically never came back. Like the classic absent father who sends a child support check when he remembers, and that's it. Diana had raised Sophia alone all that time, working and sacrificing, and I respected that a lot. We dated for almost a year before I met Sophia. Diana was very careful about mixing her romantic life with her role as a mother, which seemed responsible to me. When I finally met her, Sophia seemed like a normal teenager, a bit quiet with me at first, but nothing out of the ordinary. Looking back, I should have paid more attention to certain signs, but I was in love and optimistic, you know what I mean? Deanna and I got married in the summer of 2021. A small ceremony in my backyard with close family and some friends. I had a 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood. I had bought it after the divorce and had fixed it up myself over the years. I mean, it was my space, my project, but I was excited to turn it into a family home. Sophia was 16 at that point and obviously moved in with us. I gave her the larger of the 2 available bedrooms, thinking she would need space, being a teenager and all that. The first few months were, let's say, an adjustment phase. Deanna worked at a high school as an art teacher. Sophia went to high school, and I kept managing construction projects, sometimes working 50 or 60 hours a week when we had tight deadlines. Things started getting weird like 6 months into living together. Sophia suddenly decided her room needed a complete renovation. And when I say complete, I mean she wanted new paint, new furniture, expensive decorations, basically turn it into something out of Pinterest. Diana looked at me with that please say yes face, and I, wanting to be the good stepfather, agreed to give her a budget of like $1,000 to fix it up. I thought that was reasonable, right? Well, no. Sophia spent that in 2 days and then wanted another $500 for I don't know what other things. Diana convinced me to give her the extra money because it's important that she feels comfortable in her new home, and I, idiot me, thought it made sense. Then came the Paris trip thing. Sophia had a friend whose family was going to France in the summer and wanted Sophia to go with them. The total cost was like $3,500, including flight, hotel, and expenses. Sophia came to dinner one day and dropped the bomb like she was asking permission to go to the movies. Like, by the way, I was invited to Paris, and I need the money by next week. Diana immediately started with how it was an incredible educational opportunity and that Sophia had never left the country and blah blah blah. I tried to be reasonable and told her it was a lot of money and that maybe we could plan a family trip later, but Sophia looked at me like I had spit in her face. Diana and I had our first serious fight that night, her saying I was insensitive and didn't understand how important this was for Sophia, and me saying we couldn't just throw thousands of dollars around without planning it. In the end, I partially gave in and gave her $2,000 with the condition that Sophia get a part-time job to pay for the rest. Guess who never got that job but went to Paris anyway, because Diana gave her the remaining money from her savings. After Paris came the car. Sophia turned 18, and Diana thought it would be nice to give her a car. I agreed to buy her something used and reliable, like a Honda Civic or a Toyota Corolla from 2015 or something like that, something safe but not extravagant. Sophia wanted a BMW. I'm not joking. She wanted a used but relatively new BMW, one of those that cost like $25,000. We had another huge fight. Deanna saying, I was cheap and that Sophia deserved something nice, and me trying to explain that a car is responsibility and that starting with something modest was appropriate. We ended up buying a 2018 Mazda 3 for $15,000, which already seemed too much to me. But whatever. Sophia acted like we had bought her a piece of trash. 3 months later, she had an accident. Nothing serious, but it made a considerable dent in the side. Turns out she had been texting while driving. Insurance covered most of it, but I had to pay the $1,000 deductible. Sophia didn't even apologize, just said accidents happen and went on with her life. Then, when Sophia was 19, she showed up one day with a dog, a golden retriever puppy. She just brought it to the house and announced she had adopted it, and his name was Zeus. I stood there with my mouth open because, number one, nobody had consulted me, and number two, I'm allergic to dogs. It's not a severe allergy like I'm going to die, but it does make me sneeze and my eyes get itchy. When I told Sophia this, she said, "You can take allergy pills," like that was the perfect solution. Diana, of course, said the dog was adorable and that it would be good for Sophia to have a pet to teach her. Responsibility. The irony is, guess who ended up taking care of the dog most of the time, because Sophia got bored of walking him? Diana and I, basically. Me taking Claritin every day in my own house. The straw that broke the camel's back before the main incident was when Sophia decided she wanted to be a model or influencer or something like that. She was like 20 at that point. Had started classes at community college, but dropped them after one semester because they weren't for her. She came one day saying she needed like $2,500 for a professional modeling portfolio. Photo session with a recognized photographer who turned out to be a guy with a studio in a strip mall, wardrobe, professional makeup artist, the whole package. I asked her if she had a plan, if she had researched the industry, if she knew how all that worked. She looked at me like I was the biggest party pooper in the world and said I didn't understand anything about her generation. Diana, surprise, surprise, thought we should support her dreams. I stood firm this time and said no, that she could get a job and save for that if she really wanted it. Sophia threw a tantrum worthy of a 5-year-old, not a 20-year-old woman, screaming that I never supported her in anything and that she hated living in this house. So we get to last June, the moment that basically changed everything. Sophia came one night. I was in the living room watching the baseball game, and she sat in front of me with that serious attitude that lets you know something's coming. She told me she had an incredible business idea, that she had been researching and everything, and that she needed an initial investment. I asked her what it was about, and she explained, with a lot of excitement I must admit, that she wanted to start a skincare product line, creams and serums and those things. She said she had found a supplier who could manufacture the products with her special formula, which turned out to be something she basically saw on TikTok, and that she only needed $7,000 to start. $7,000. I asked her if she had a business plan, if she had researched the market, the competition, operating costs, profit margins, marketing strategy, literally anything that showed she had thought this through seriously. She looked at me confused and said those details were figured out later, that first she needed the money to start. I told her no, that I wasn't going to invest $7,000 in an idea without any solid plan behind it. I suggested that if she really wanted to do this, she could research more, create a real business plan, maybe start smaller with her own savings. Sophia got angry. Obviously. But I thought that was it. Diana asked me that night why I had been so hard on her, and I explained that it wasn't being hard, it was being realistic. That throwing money at an idea without foundation wasn't supporting her. It was being irresponsible. Diana didn't say much more about it, but I noticed she was distant. 2 days later, Deanna came home from work and looked weird, like pale and nervous. She told me we needed to talk, and my first thought was that maybe someone had died or something. We sat in the kitchen, and she started crying before even saying anything. She finally let out that Sophia had told her something very serious about me, that I had made inappropriate comments toward her, that I had made her feel uncomfortable in the house. I froze. I literally felt like cold water had been thrown on me. I asked her what the hell she was talking about, what comments, when supposedly this had happened. Diana said, Sophia had told her that I said things to her about her appearance, that I had once entered her room without knocking, that I looked at her strangely. I couldn't believe it. I simply couldn't. I told Diana that was completely false. That never, and when I say never, I mean never, had I done anything remotely inappropriate. I told her to think, to remember if she had ever seen me behave that way. Diana was crying and saying she didn't know what to think, that Sophia was very upset, and that maybe I didn't realize how my actions looked. I left the house that night and stayed at a hotel. I couldn't be there. I couldn't even look at Diana without feeling this mix of fury and betrayal. I called Jennifer, my ex-wife, because frankly I didn't know who else to talk to. Jennifer had always been sensible, and when I told her what was happening, there was a long silence before she said, and I quote, "Marcus, that girl is manipulative. I've seen it when we've coincided at family events. Be very careful." She asked me if I had proof of my innocence, and I told her I didn't have proof of something that never happened. How do you prove a negative? She suggested I get a lawyer immediately, before things escalated further. The next day I hired a lawyer, Richard Chen, specialized in family law and defamation cases. I told him the whole situation, and he was very clear with me. He told me that accusations like these, even false ones, could destroy my life, my career, everything. He advised me to start documenting absolutely everything, to get evidence of my behavior and of Sophia's manipulative personality. He told me I needed to think like a detective, gather text messages, emails, testimonies from neighbors or friends, anything that established a pattern of behavior. He also suggested something that seemed invasive but necessary to me: install security cameras in the common areas of the house and, if it was legal in my state, voice recorders in my own property. I went back to the house 3 days later. Diana had been calling me constantly, saying we needed to resolve this. Sophia was at college that day, so Diana and I could talk. She kept insisting that I needed to understand what Sophia was feeling, and I told her very clearly that I wasn't going to admit something I didn't do. I told her that if Sophia had these accusations, maybe she should go to the police and make an official report, because I was willing to face any investigation because I had nothing to hide. Diana got very nervous with that and said Sophia didn't want to involve the police, that she just wanted me to acknowledge I had been inappropriate. That's when it became crystal clear to me, you know? If something had really happened, why wouldn't she want to go to the police? Because it was a lie, that's why. I hired a security company and installed cameras in the living room, kitchen, hallways, basically all common areas. I told Diana it was for house security. Also, and this was direct advice from my lawyer, I installed voice-activated recorders in the living room and kitchen, hidden in places where they wouldn't be obvious. In my state, it's legal to record conversations on your own property without others' consent, if you're part of the conversation, or if it's your private property. I started taking screenshots of text conversations with Diana and Sophia, of posts Sophia made on Instagram showing off her material things, photos in Paris, with her car, with the dog, everything basically financed by me. My lawyer also suggested I talk to neighbors, specifically Mrs. Morrison, who lived next door and had lived there like 15 years. She had known Jennifer and me since before the divorce. I explained the situation to her, and she, without me asking, gave me a written statement saying she had never seen any inappropriate behavior from me, that I had always been respectful, and that since Sophia moved in, she had noticed the girl was particularly demanding and dramatic, her exact words. I also talked to 2 close friends who had been to the house several times since Diana and Sophia moved in, and both gave me similar statements. About 3 weeks passed with this horrible tension in the house. Diana and I basically didn't talk except for necessary things. Sophia avoided me completely, but I could see her whispering things to Diana, constantly. Then, one Saturday afternoon, I was in the garage organizing tools, and the recorders captured a conversation between Sophia and her friend who had come to visit her. They were in the living room, thinking I wasn't in the house because my truck wasn't in the garage. I had parked it on the street because I was unloading materials. The conversation was revealing in ways I didn't even imagine. Sophia was telling her friend, laughing, that she had exaggerated some things so Diana would pressure me to give her the money for her business. Her friend asked if she was serious about what she had told her mom, and Sophia responded, "And I have this recorded verbatim." Obviously not, but my mom is so naive she believes everything. Plus, Marcus is an asshole who has money and never gives me anything. At least this way, I can get something out of him. They laughed together. They kept talking, and Sophia mentioned that if I didn't give her the money soon, she was going to add more details to her story, so Diana would force me to move out of my own house. I was in the garage with headphones, listening to the live transmission of the recorder on my phone, literally shaking with rage. I wanted to go in there and confront her immediately, but I restrained myself. I called my lawyer and sent him the recording immediately. He told me it was exactly the type of evidence we needed, but not to do anything yet, to keep gathering. 2 days later, Sophia escalated the situation. Diana came home after work and told me Sophia had told her more details, that I supposedly had touched her shoulder inappropriately, that I had made a comment about her body when she was wearing shorts. All absolutely false. Diana was crying and saying she didn't know what to do, that maybe we should go to family therapy. I stayed calm and told her I agreed with therapy, but only if Sophia was willing to talk to a professional about her accusations, because a trained therapist could determine the truth. Diana said she would talk to Sophia about it. The therapy never happened because Sophia flatly refused, saying she wasn't going to relive the trauma with a stranger. But here's where things got really dark. One night, like at 11 p.m., Sophia knocked on my home office door. I was working on some blueprints for a project. She came in and closed the door behind her, which immediately made me nervous. I told her to leave the door open, and she said she needed to talk privately. I discreetly took out my phone and started recording audio on my notes app. Sophia sat down and told me, with this super calm voice that gave me chills, that we could resolve all of this easily. That if I gave her $50,000 for her business and to compensate for the emotional stress I had caused her, she would retract everything she had told Diana, and we could go back to being a happy family. $50,000. It was extortion, pure and simple. I asked her if she was aware that what she was proposing was a federal crime, and she shrugged and said nobody would believe me because she was the victim and I was the suspect. She said if I didn't give her the money, she was going to go to the police and make an official report, and that she knew how to cry convincingly for the officers. I'm not going to lie. That moment was probably the scariest of this whole thing. Not because I believed her accusations would hold up in a real investigation, but because I realized how sociopathic this girl was. I told her I would think about it, and we would talk later. She smiled, a smile that chilled my blood, and left the office. I immediately sent the recording to my lawyer. He told me we now had evidence of extortion and it was time to act. I spent the next 3 days preparing everything. My lawyer helped me organize all the evidence, the recordings, the neighbor statements, the text messages, the expense records showing all the thousands of dollars I had spent on Sophia, screenshots of her social media, everything showing off her material things, photos in Paris, with her car, with the dog, everything basically financed by me. He also suggested I confront both of them, Sophia and Diana, together, with the recordings. But to do it on video to have a record of their reactions. The showdown happened on a Friday night. I had arranged with a friend to come and record from his phone, presenting it as needing a witness present. I called Diana and Sophia to the living room and told them we needed to have a serious conversation. Diana looked worried. Sophia looked annoyed. I started very calmly, saying that for the past few weeks, I had been accused of very serious things, and that I had taken the time to thoroughly investigate the situation. Sophia immediately said she had nothing more to say, and that I was just trying to manipulate them. Then I played the first recording, the one of Sophia and her friend laughing about having exaggerated things and calling me an asshole. Diana's face. I don't have words to describe it. She went white, literally white. Sophia started stammering something about how that conversation had been taken out of context. Then I played the second recording, the one of her trying to extort me for $50,000. Sophia got up and tried to leave the room, but Diana yelled at her to sit down. I had never heard Diana yell like that. I showed Diana all the screenshots, the neighbor statements, the expense records. I showed her how over 2 years I had spent more than $40,000 on her daughter, between the room renovation, the trip, the car, the dog, the insurance deductible, food, clothes, everything Sophia had asked for. Diana started to cry, but not in the sad way, but in that way where you're so angry you cry. She asked Sophia if it was all true, if she had lied about everything. Sophia tried the victim approach, saying she felt I had treated her badly, that emotionally I had been abusive by denying her things. Diana told her to shut up. Diana looked at me and told me she didn't know what to say, that she was so sorry, that she couldn't believe her daughter had done this. Sophia then yelled at Diana that she was supposed to be on her side, that she was her mother. Diana responded that being her mother didn't mean supporting her lies and manipulation. Sophia grabbed her keys and phone and left the house, slamming the door. Diana stayed on the couch crying. I told her, as calmly as I could, that I needed them to pack their things and find another place to live, that I couldn't continue in this situation. She nodded without saying anything. I told her I was going to stay at a hotel for 3 days to give them time to pack, and that when I came back I wanted them gone. Deanna asked me if there was any way to fix this, and I honestly told her, no, that the trust was completely broken, and that besides, I had already started divorce proceedings. She started crying harder, but didn't argue. I stayed at a hotel those 3 days. Diana sent me messages apologizing, saying she had been a fool, that she should have believed me from the beginning. I responded that I appreciated the apology, but my decision was final. When I returned to the house, they were gone. They had left the house relatively clean, took all their things. Diana left the keys on the kitchen table with a note saying she was sorry again. And the first thing I did was change all the locks on the house, even the garage ones. My lawyer had advised me to do that immediately. The divorce was relatively quick because we didn't have children together, and I had clear documentation that the house was mine from before the marriage. Diana didn't fight anything, signed all the papers without problem. Sophia, however, wasn't going to let it go that easily. Like 2 weeks after they moved out, one of my friends sent me a link to a GoFundMe page Sophia had created. The title was something like, Help for Abuse, Survivor Seeking Justice, and in a description. She told this whole fabricated story about how her abusive stepfather had kicked her and her mother out of the house after years of emotional abuse and harassment. She had uploaded photos of herself crying, like dramatic selfies. She was asking for $30,000 for legal expenses and therapy. My lawyer immediately sent a cease and desist letter, threatening a lawsuit for defamation and fraud. But what really killed the GoFundMe was that some of Sophia's friends, the ones who knew the truth or at least suspected it, started commenting on the page exposing her lies. A girl who had been her best friend in high school wrote a long comment about how Sophia had lied about multiple people in the past and how this was a pattern of behavior. Other former friends shared their own stories of how Sophia had manipulated or used them. The page filled with negative comments, and Sophia shut it down after having raised barely like $400, probably from people who didn't know her. Sophia tried to make an Instagram post after that, playing victim again, but the comments were even worse. People destroyed her. Her reputation basically collapsed in her social circle. Diana sent me a message like a month later saying Sophia had had to go to therapy because she was depressed about all the backlash and that she was finally starting to admit she had lied. Diana asked me if I would consider talking to Sophia to give her closure. I told her no, that Sophia was an adult and that the consequences of her actions were her responsibility, not mine. The divorce was finalized like 6 months ago. I kept the house, obviously, and basically went back to my life from before. I took a break from the charity work I used to do, coordinating builds for Habitat for Humanity, because frankly, I needed distance from situations where my reputation could be questioned again. My friends and family were incredibly supportive once they knew the truth. Jennifer, my ex-wife, told me she had warned me about Sophia from the beginning and that she wished she had been more insistent. I told her it wasn't her fault, that I had wanted to see the best in the situation. Deanna and Sophia, from what I know through mutual acquaintances, they're living in a small apartment on the other side of town. Diana still works as a teacher. Sophia eventually got a job in retail, like selling clothes at a mall store, nothing glamorous. Her dream of being an influencer or businesswoman obviously never materialized. I heard her reputation is so ruined she lost most of her friendships. Part of me feels sorry for Diana, because deep down I think she genuinely didn't know how manipulative her daughter was until everything exploded. But another part of me is still angry because she chose to believe Sophia instead of me when there was no real evidence of anything. I guess maternal instinct is powerful, but it has limits. As for me, I'm fine now. I sold the Mazda I had bought for Sophia, recovered some money. The dog, Zeus, turned out Diana couldn't keep him in the new apartment because they didn't allow large pets, so I ended up keeping him. At first, I wasn't happy about my allergies, but the vet recommended a special food breed that reduces allergens, and with the allergy pills, it's manageable. Turns out Zeus is a good dog when he's not being used as a manipulation tool. I've started dating someone new, an engineer I met on a work project. We're going slow. She knows the whole story and has been understanding with my precautions. I don't know if I'll get married again. Honestly, after 2 failed marriages, you start to question yourself. But I'm open to seeing what happens. The biggest lesson from all this, I guess, is that manipulation can come from where you least expect it. Sophia was 16 when I met her and seemed like a normal teenager. A bit spoiled maybe, but nothing that screamed danger. But looking back, all the signs were there. The sense of entitlement, the lack of gratitude, the constant escalation of demands, the way she played with Diana's emotions. I should have set firmer boundaries from the beginning, but I wanted to be the cool stepfather, the supportive one, and Sophia saw that as weakness to exploit. And Diana, with all her guilt about having raised Sophia without a father, never set real boundaries, never really said no. She basically turned her into a monster. The craziest thing of all is that if Sophia had just waited, if she had been patient and built a genuine relationship with me, I probably would have eventually helped her with a real business if she demonstrated responsibility, but her impatience and her sense that everything was owed to her led her to completely nuke any relationship we had. And the sad part is, I don't think she really understands, even now, what she did wrong. People like that, sociopaths or narcissists or whatever you want to call them, are always the victim in their own narrative. It's always someone else's fault. Sophia probably tells herself a version of this story where I'm the villain and she's the misunderstood heroine. And honestly, let her think whatever she wants. I have the recordings, I have the evidence, I have my life back, and that's enough for me.